Okay, class, before going into this week's material over interfaces and generics, what I would like to do is do a little demonstration on how you can add more than one form to your project. So an assignment you'll have coming up, I believe assignment 5, you'll add a second form to an application, and it's not overly difficult, but I'm just going to go ahead and do a little demonstration on how to do it and I'll use our product maintenance application that we've been working with as a starting point. And I'll also do a little bit of type checking and stuff like that we've never done before as well. So the first thing I want to do is I want to persist all of the products we've been getting on my form, and by that I mean currently I'm getting our products from the database and I'm calling my product service, and I'm getting the products and I'm casting those to a list. But then once I have them and I put them on my list box here, I'm not really doing anything with them. They're gone. So what I would like to do is actually have them persisted on my form. So up at the top here, I'm going to put a list of products. List product. And I'm going to call them products equals new list of product. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and set the products that I get from the database at a class level. That way, once this method isn't over, the garbage collector doesn't take them. So since they're up here, the garbage collector won't take them until the form is finished. So since I have list products here, I don't need these anymore. And I'm going to go ahead, I don't need this anymore because I'm really not doing anything with my product list class that we created custom. So instead of my products from the database now I need to for each over the products that are on my form. So I'm going to go ahead and for each over those, and it shouldn't have changed anything. I should still have the same list of products that I got back from my database call or my service. So there you go. Just to show that nothing has changed, I should have the same products. The 3 products plus a book. So now going back to the form, what I would like to do, and I believe, okay, I already added an edit button click event. So what I want to happen is when I click one of those books on the form, let me go ahead and F5 and show you. Once I click one of these books on the form and click edit, I would expect a dialog box to pop up and allow me to edit that product. So for example, this book or this book or this product. So the first thing we're going to need to do is come here and add, or go to our project, sorry, not our solution, and add a new Windows form to our application. So I'm going to call this one book form. And then just for the sake of, I won't add a button actually. I didn't know I could change spots of those. That's cool. Anyways, I'll just add a text box. Oh, I didn't like whatever I just did there. I'm going to add a text box to this form just to display the contents of my object once I pass it over. I'll go ahead and leave the name the same. I want to put the text as edit a book. And I'm going to do the same thing for a generic product. Do I want to do that for a product? No. Let's add another class. I went to the solution again. Let's add another class, and instead of a product, let's add a gaming system, since my other products were gaming systems. So I have a gaming system class. And I'm going to have this class extend product, so that way it can go into the same list. And I'm going to add a public property on it. What makes a gaming system different than a book or a product? What added functionality do I want to add for a gaming system? I'll leave an integer number of players. So maybe you can have 4 players on an Xbox, but 6 on a PlayStation, something like that. Anyways, our gaming system is going to be tied to how many players can play on it, like somewhat simultaneously. Not online, obviously, like in the same household or whatever. So now going back, I can edit a book. I'm going to go ahead and close my gaming system class since I'm not doing anything with it anymore. I'll go ahead and close my book class. Sorry, I'm just trying to close some stuff. I have too much stuff open. Let's go back to gaming system. And let's override the getDisplayText method. GetDisplayText. And instead of this, so let's return base getDisplayText. Plus, let's add a string here. Now add in the number of players. .toString. Let's format it a little bit. So we have number of players, and we could say number of players. Okay. That should look decent. Let's put like a semicolon or colon to separate it out a little bit. Okay. So I overrode the getDisplayText method. I also allowed it to do a number of players here. So let's go to my product service, I believe is where I built all that out. Instead of having this as a product, let's make this a gaming system. And let's do this all the way down. Notice I have an error here because I'm calling the constructor, and I'm calling it with 3 parameters. But if you go to this gaming system class, it probably doesn't have 3 parameters. No, it doesn't have a constructor at all. So I'm going to go ahead and make one. So if you control period, you can have it generate a constructor. And that's not really what I wanted. No. So that made a default constructor for me. I want the IDE to help me out. Alright, yep, that's kind of what I wanted. So from product, if you don't want to code it out yourself, you can click over here and then click the little paintbrush and tell it to generate a constructor for you. So now I have a constructor that takes in all four parameters for me. And going back to the product service, a gaming system takes code description price, but I also want to have it take in number of players. So let's put a line break there so we can see what's going on. So this has the 3, but I also want to set my number of players. Let's move this to the top, that way it doesn't get lost down here. int number of players. And then I'll go ahead and say this number of players in this instance of this class is equal to the number of players that gets passed into this constructor. So we send to our base constructor those parameters, and we're going to go ahead and set this one here. So now I'm going to say the number of players for an Xbox is 4. And then here we can just simply use the object initializer to initialize these. So a PlayStation we can say is 6. I'm totally making these numbers up. And then Nintendo, number of players is 3. And now a book, notice this is a book. If I do number of players, it's not there because books don't have number of players. It's a different class. But it still can go into this list of product because of polymorphism and inheritance. So if I go back, here's my edit a book form. What I'm going to end up doing is making a edit a gaming system form. So let's add, clicked on the solution again. Let's add a Windows form. Gonna call it, so I call it book form gaming system form. Go ahead and add it to my project. And let's change the text to edit a gaming system. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put a text box on this one as well. And then I'll put in the text box just probably the get display text property once we get there. So I'm just going to go ahead and exit out of these now. Okay. Here's the product service. So now I have my edit button click event, and from there, let me make this bigger again. If I F5, so now remember the objective is I want to be able to select one of these and then click edit, and then a new form pop up to allow me to edit those properties. So now let's go ahead and exit. So what I want to do is be able to grab the index of what was selected in that list box. So I'm going to say an index is my list of products dot selected index. So now that's an integer that correlates to which one of these is selected in my list box. So is it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on down the line. So that's the selected index, and then I can say the product that was selected equals my list of products dot items now. I want this to be the products that are on my application or on my form at that index. So I simply for each through the products and put them on my form. And now, since they put them on the form in that order, I know that they still have to be in that order persisted on my form here. So they must still be in that same order, so simply accessing them by that index should be fine. So now that I have the product that was selected, so if you hover over it, it is a product. That's all the compiler knows, is that it is something that inherits from product. It could be a gaming system or a book. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and throw on an if statement that says if the product selected is book. So now I'm doing a little bit of type checking with the is operator. So if it's a book, then I want to make a book form. A new instance of the book form class. Equals new book form. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and make a gaming system form. Just because those are my only two. Okay, and now what do I want to happen is I want to show the dialogue, which is just the form essentially. So now the gaming system form.show dialog. Okay, so now that we have both of the forms set up, I want to go ahead and make it smaller. I want to F5 to run it. And now if I highlight one of these, I should see the correct form. So here's a gaming system with the number of players. Let's click Edit. And now it brings me to the Edit a Gaming System form. Now, I haven't quite populated this text box yet, and we'll go over how to do that in a second. And if I click here, I should get the Edit a Book form. And sure enough, I do. So now I have two different forms popping up depending on which type each one of these are. So now I have default constructors for my form, which is fine, and that does initialize components, but what I want is I want another constructor, and this constructor is going to take in a book. Book. And this is going to be the book that I want to begin editing. So there's my book form, my gaming system form. Let's go back here. Gaming system form, let's F12 into that. Did I not click F12? That's not what I wanted. What are you doing here, Visual Studio? Just go there. That's not what I wanted. Alright, let's do it the hard way. Go to definition. Why don't you like that? What is it asking me which one I want to go to maybe? Let's go to this one. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here for my gaming system form. I'm going to make a constructor that takes in a gaming object of type gaming system. And then from there, I'm going to set a public property. Does it need to be public? Not really, so I'm going to set a private field. Gaming system. So now I can say the gaming system on my form is equal to the gaming system being passed in. And I'll go ahead and do that same thing for the book form. Private book. And by the way, this is the underscore syntax is syntax for you to know what your variable is without having to look. So usually an underscore denotes a private field. It's just developers knowledge. In C# developers usually do the underscore for private fields. The compiler doesn't care what you name it, but it's just easier for people that read your code later to have like naming conventions. Okay. So now what we need to do is also call initialize components, because the components aren't going to get initialized unless we do it, and we're not calling the default constructor, so we still need to have this text box made here. Because if I'm calling this one, then this one's not going to get called. So we still need to initialize the components. And then I'm going to say, I don't think I ever named my text box anything meaningful. So let's go here and do that. Text box 1, let's do txt gaming system. If this was an actual form that you were going to edit these with, you'd have multiple text boxes for each thing. So you'd have the code, the description, the price, the number of players. But since I'm just trying to throw it on the form quickly here for this demonstration's purpose, I'm just going to do the one. Same thing with book form. Let's go ahead and make this txt book. Okay. So now let's go back to our gaming system, and we can say txt gaming system dot text is going to be excuse me, gaming system dot, let's get the display text. Let's do the same thing for our book form. So after I set the book, I can say txt book dot text is equal to, I can even use my private field here because it should be set already, get display text. I'm going to give it a comma as well. Okay, so now let's start F5 our application. And we have our books and gaming systems here. Let's do this one and edit. And the gaming system form should pop up. Wait, no, it shouldn't, because I don't think I ever passed it with the right constructor. So before that, let's go back. Where do I want to be? Right here. And notice we're still using the default constructor, and that default constructor isn't passing a form, if you remember. See, it's not passing your book here. So we don't want to use the default constructor, we want to use the correct constructor. Let's exit out of some of this stuff. Okay, so now here, let's pass the product that was selected, and let's pass the product that was selected here. And it probably doesn't like because it's a product. Yeah, it cannot convert from product to book. So I'm going to go ahead and use the casting operator. So the is operator makes sure that it is a book, and the as operator actually casts it. So book selected is a book, then go through here. I know it's a book now. Now when I pass the product selected, I want to pass it as a book, even though it's a product. And I want to pass this as a gaming system. So now let's go in F5 and we should be good now. Number of players, click edit. And now here is edit a gaming system, and then you can see that I got the display text here from my object, and it should be the same. Yep, 399, number of players 4. etc. Okay, so now if I exit out, this one should take me to the edit a book form. And again, it's that same object. Fellowship of the Ring, $20, J.R.R. Tolkien. So that's how you have multiple forms in an application and being able to pass stuff back and forth. So how do we actually edit something and pass it back to the calling form? So that's a little bit more tricky. So I'll take you through that here. So let's go. We're showing the dialog for a book form. So let's go back to this book form class. And let's put a couple buttons. Now let's do the gaming form. Let's first of all make this text box bigger. So I'm just going to edit. You really can't do much with that. So I'm just going to edit the description and send it back. So I'll fix that in a second. I'm going to put a couple buttons on this form. I'm going to put a submit button and a cancel button. Submit, exit, go ahead and give them meaningful names, BTN, exit, BTN, submit. And instead of exit, this really doesn't exit, so let's call this cancel. Because it really doesn't cancel or exit the form, it just cancels your editing of a gaming system. So let's change that. Let's go to the form and set the buttons here. So let's set the cancel button to my cancel button and the accept button to my submit. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the cancel button and just do close. So that's easy enough. And now the submit button is what's going to happen when I submit the form. So instead of doing gaming system.get display text, let's do gaming system.description. So I just want to edit the description, so I'm just going to set this text to the description. So the first thing I'm going to do is say var result equals this dot dialog result dot okay, so I'm going to set the result to the dialog result dot okay. And what that does is it tells the form that the OK button was clicked, or the submit button. So I'm going to be using that on the calling form. And then I'm going to set the book, or notice the gaming system, dot description equal to whatever is in the new text box. So again, you might want to do some validation here and make sure they didn't just clear out the description or something like that. Maybe throw up an error message if they did. But for the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip that here. txt gaming system dot text. And then I'm going to say this dot tag is equal to my book. Nope, gaming system. So there's a tag on your form, and you can tag the form with your object. That way you can get it back on your calling form back over here. So when we go back to, let's exit out of that, exit out of that. So when you come back here, and we're dealing with a gaming system, so once they're done doing whatever they're doing on the other form, we can say if the gaming system form actually, I think this show dialog returns a dialog result. So let's say var result equals gaming system form.show dialog, and then I'll say if the result equals dialog result.ok. So if they clicked the OK button, let's put a couple equal signs there, then I only want to go through this logic if they clicked the OK button, which we know they clicked the OK button, or they could click the cancel button. So if they did click the cancel button, this will be false and it'll just continue on through, which I'll show in a second here. So if the result is they click the OK button from their form, then I want to add that new book. So I'm going to say var my new book, new gaming system, equals the gaming system that's coming back from my form. So I'm going to say my gaming system form, and that's what I put on the tag property. And right now it's an object, so I'm going to say as gaming system, because I know it's a gaming system because that's what I tagged on the form. And then I want to override the one that's in my list with this new gaming system, so that way it updates my list. So now I can go to products, add that particular index that we were editing, and I'm going to say equals my new gaming system. And then the last thing I want to do is paint that again. So I want to do this. I'm going to go ahead and extract this into a new method because I'm calling it again. And I want to call that new method display products. So now whenever I call display products, it'll do this. So now I don't need to copy that code. I can just simply copy the method call. And now let's see if what I did worked. First of all, let's do a negative test. And I have a Xbox, and I want to click Edit. And notice that here is now my description instead of the get display text. And let's click the cancel button to make sure it doesn't change. And sure enough, nothing changes. Which I didn't change Xbox, so let's actually go back. And let's change this to an Xbox 360. And let's click cancel. Okay, and it did not update. So that's good. So let's make sure now it does update. So now we have an Xbox. Let's change it to an Xbox 360. Click submit. And I broke something. Uh-oh. Alright, give me a second to figure out what I broke here. Okay, I figured it out. So this, what I had was var result, and I was never doing anything with it, which I should have saw by this underline. What I need to be setting is the dialog result on this form. So this form's dialog result equals dialog result.ok. So when you come back to your product maintenance form, you're saying you're showing the dialog, and then you're setting the result from the dialog result on the form. And then another thing I saw that I forgot to do was when I display products, I actually want to clear it. So I want to say list products.items.clear. That way I'm not displaying the items twice. So now if I F5, here's my items from my database. I can come here to Xbox and click Edit. And I want to make this an Xbox 360. Submit, and now it's an Xbox 360 here. So that's how you have multiple forms. I did it using a little bit of inheritance and polymorphism just to show you how that's helpful. I don't think your project requires you to do a lot of this if logic depending on what type the product is, so that was more just showing the power of inheritance. But that should be a pretty good starting point for your assignment this week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And sorry the video got so long, but thanks.